Hello and welcome to Adobe Illustrator. Today's going to be the first introduction lesson into Adobe Illustrator. Now for all those who do not know, Adobe Illustrator is in fact a vector-based software, unlike Photoshop, which is in fact a raster-based software. Now going right behind me, we have an example of what you can achieve, and this is actually a small demo that I put together with the help of a video capturing software. So as you can see over there in the top right hand corner, you can see the entire toolbar set, and on my left there's also a set of toolbars. Those are the set toolbars that will be used while you're making any of your work. But here's the thing, now all the toolbars on your right and all the toolbars on your left are in some way not full tools of what they actually are. To find out the real tools, they are up in the top corner up there, right above me. There will be the tools. All right, now here's the thing, the tools that we are going to be using today is, first things first, we've got to remember that it is a vector-based software. So some of the tools over here might look familiar from Photoshop, but you must bear in mind that they are in fact vector-based tools. Okay, now going right along, we're going to open a new document. Now simple to open a new document, you have to just simply go to the file, choose new, or you can use control new, which is command N or control N on your keyboard, and you will get the new preset. Now the preset over here behind me, the preset, as you can see, it has different styles. There is a profile over there. In that profile we have print, web, devices, video and film, and basic RGB. Now what are those for? Print over there is for in fact doing all your print work. Like if you're a graphic design artist, you might want to create something for printing a poster or something like that. Anyway, coming down to the next is a web. What can the web preset do for you? Very simple. The web preset can allow you to create your basic web layouts so that you can combine them later on with Dreamweaver or Muse. But that's up to another time. Coming along, we've got devices. Now for all of those who are an upcoming graphic design or for that matter someone who likes to develop an app, they can actually use that option of devices to create a device layout so that they can see how it looks. They can go for ranges from an iPad, so the standard size of an iPad, down to an Android, down to Surface Pro itself. So you can cover all your basic softwares and devices out there. Coming along down the road, we've got next over here film and video. Now film and video in Photoshop was used to create matte paintings, whereas over here in Illustrator for video and film is used to create your title sequences, or you can use that to create some sort of vector artwork that you might want to animate later using Adobe Illustrator or Adobe After Effects. Okay, now right down below that we've got the basic RGB. Now the basic RGB is only made up of print, web and devices. There will not be any film and video because basic RGB is converting them back into RGB. Okay, so that is why if you see over here, you do not notice any of the film and video, you only notice the other things. Anyway, coming to that, we will put that aside, we will go back to print. We will then choose a different type of print paper. We're going to use maybe an A4 for this example. Now, as you can see below that, we have artboards. What are artboards? Very simple. An artboard, you can say for this example, which is an A4, will be an A4 size page, and that is your artboard. Around that, you can create anything you want, but as long as the art is put back into that small piece of paper in that center, you can do whatever you wish. Now moving along, you can even use that, not just create one artboard, you can create multiple artboards. You can go up to even 100 or beyond. But for this now, we don't need to use 100 artboards, so we're just going to go back to one. Anyway, now here's the thing. In the, now after that, we're going to come down, we're going to choose our landscape or portrait mode. We got different types, two types of portrait modes over there. It's called landscape and portrait. We can use any one that we desire, so there's nothing to worry about that. Then, of course, we have with us the next bit of things to look at, which is in fact the unit of measurement. So we got pixels, picasas, inches, centimeters, millimeters, and points. So not worry about that. Whatever is over here, you can always keep to one, or you can change it. It is really up to you. You can change it on the fly. So there's no problem whatsoever that they will be the same. Okay? Anyway, now once that is done, we will move down, and sometimes you might just see advanced mode over here, which will have the basic colors, which is color mode, which is CMYK, and then of course you have RGB, which is the two. But do not worry about that. Some of you all might just get a blank screen like that. So to see it, Simply just hit on it once and you will get the screen to drop down. When it drops down, you will see CMYK, RGB, the only 2 color modes that are there, not 5 like how you see in Photoshop. Alright. Then of course we have the types of resolution. We've got screen, medium and high. Screen being 72, then 150 going up to 300. Now if you notice, they are PPI and not DPI. DPI in Illustrator stood, in Photoshop stood for density per inch. In this case, PPI stands for pixels per inch. Anyway, moving that along, we can choose the highest one. Since it is a vector-based software, it will automatically compute itself for you. Alright, now coming along to the next part, we'll just say OK and we'll open up a new document. So now behind me there will be a new document, as you can see, and over there on the right hand side we will see what is known as the fill and stroke colors over there, and they are in fact what you will be using to change and create your colors. Now the thing is, if you do not like them, you can always use a small button over there on the small corner to change the colors between them back and forth, or you can press Shift X on your keyboard, which will let you switch between the 2 colors. If you would like to add new colors, on the top right hand corner there are the same 2 colors. You can choose any one that you wish to change the colors to your desire. So for this example, I am not going to use the white. I'm going to change that to black, and from up there I've changed that to black, I'm assuming by now. So once it's changed to black, I will just take that color out and I want to create the rectangle from here, and I'm just going to create some rectangles, because as you can see right now on the corner I have turned on the layers, so you can see all the layers over there. You can see an artboard. So the artboard, you can create multiple artboards for your choice to use whenever you so wish to use them. Then once that is done, you can, well, since we don't need it for this example, we can always delete them and bring them back. So the thing is that to undo over here in Illustrator, you normally have to just hit Ctrl Z, unlike in Photoshop, which was Ctrl Alt Z to go back a multiple times. They have made it more streamlined and more user friendly. Anyway, coming down to the next part over here, we've got our layers. Layers can be multiple layers which can show up. Otherwise, if you don't need to use the multiple layers, you can in fact just use the ones that you want, and you can always, well, I'll show you in this example. So coming back, I've taken the rectangle tool and I want to create some rectangles just like that, just random rectangles here and there, nothing to worry about. Okay, so now once the biggest question I've got to ask, these rectangles, are they connected together or not? Well, to be honest, they are not connected at all. Why do I say that? Is because of this. I can take them and I can move them to wherever they want to go, because that is in fact, if you see Illustrator right now, the layer panel shows only one layer, but I was able to move that. That is because there's no such thing as a layer per se. There is in fact sub-layers in Illustrator. So you can make how many layers you want as long as it fits in that sub-layer. And that makes your work even much more easier when you're doing a bigger and better artworks. Anyway, coming back to the example, now the thing is that as you can see, the selection that I've used is the same regular selection that you might find in Photoshop. Now the thing is, this is selecting the entire square. I do not want to or wish to select just the entire square. I also would like to even change the colors of the square, so I can even individually now change those colors of those squares. At the same time, after I've selected them, I want to select all the squares now. Okay, deleted them. Oops, by accident, let me bring them all back. They're anyway brought back. Okay, so now here's the thing. Since the squares have been selected, but they're all selected, I just want to select an individual one. So I'm going to bring just one over here and an individual one. And now I want to change the individual just by only changing the points, the little anchor points that are there around the square. So how do I do that? Simple. Over there in the selection menu, there is in fact a small selection tool at the side of it called the Direct Select. Simply pressing A on your keyboard will bring up the Direct Select command. Once that is done, in fact, you will get to see the entire screen properly. Once that is there, click on the point, and as you do, you've selected only that individual point. So it means you can just take it and move it to wherever you want to move it to. Alright, so that handles the Direct Select. But now what's the point? We just learned Direct Select. We've learned what's that? Regular selection and creating squares. How does that help me, you might ask? Simple. A square and a circle, what do they have in common? Well, the thing that they have in common, because they're in Illustrator, is that they're all related to the pen tool. And for today's actual main lesson, is that we're going to use the pen tool to create artwork. Now the thing is, for this lesson, we're trying to get out of the habit that the pen tool in Photoshop put us into. Because if you became an expert in the pen tool in Photoshop, doing this exercise is pretty much easy. But for someone who's not an expert in the pen tool in Photoshop, it's going to be a little bit challenging. So to get the whole notion that, oh, I have to do this extra bit over here and extra bit over there just so that it stays in place, no, you don't have to, because in fact this will help you understand and get over that fear that you had with the pen tool from Photoshop. So here's the thing, I am going to open a new document. In the new document, I am going to choose Marvin the Martian. He's going to help us with this exercise. So I'm going to bring him out and I'm going to click and drag him over to my previous artboard. Once I drag him over to the previous artboard, I will then put him down over here and I will align him. I will resize him. That's the beauty of Illustrator, that we don't have to actually turn on any transformations because it's already happening for us as we speak. And here's a perfect example of why it is a vector-based software, not a raster-based. I will put in small little circle over there just to show you an example of what I mean that. And as I zoom in, you will notice that the circle remains perfectly fine, whereas as Marvin the Martian has started to pixelate. How do we solve that? Very simple. We are going to digitize Marvin the Martian by turning him into a vector by using the pen tool. So for now, what I'm going to do is I am now going to lock Marvin the Martian by simply going over here to the layers, and I want to lock him with pressing on that small little empty space right over there. All right. Now, since that is done, I am now going to take my pen tool, and after I take my pen tool, I am going to select the red color, so at least some bright color, so I don't lose focus. Because if I choose a dark color, I might lose where I placed the line on the drawing. Anyway, so once that is selected, I will start over here. Now here's the thing, it's going to be a long process. So don't rush it, do it calmly. Now I'm doing it pretty much very fast over here. That's because I have got some little bit of years of experience. So that's why you can see the outline of Marvin the Martian will finish pretty fast. All right, so here's the thing. After that, I'm going to do the insides, the inner pieces of Marvin the Martian's crown, as you can see over there. I'm going to do a small crown right over there. And now here's the thing. I'm going to do it as if I've never used the pen tool in Illustrator before. So what I'm going to do is, instead of clicking and dragging and making a curve, I'm going to instead just click and move up and down around the entire area. Now, why am I doing that? That is because there's a nice small trick that you can do, which is up in that corner over there. If you notice, there are two buttons, one which looks like the anchor point without any sort of bevel, and the other one has a bevel inside it. So once that is done, once it is done over here, I'm going to use those small little tiny bevels, those 2 points over there, to in fact create the curves that we need for this. Now, I'm going to show a small example over here, and there it is. Small example is happening behind me. Now, for the purposes of time, I am going to let that part over there speed up a bit so we can go on to the next part. Whereas in the next part, we can see over here, I'm going to create a curve right across the Marvin's crown itself. So now here's the thing. To get that curve to go around, instead of having it to go straight across, in some cases you can't get it to go straight across. So what you can do is, to limit the amount of curves that you need, just simply click once, twice, 3 times. That's all you would need just to get the whole thing to work. So here's the thing, that's how we did that, and that's almost literally the same way how you do the other two. So I will speed those two up itself so that we can get to the final beauty of this project. All right, so now that we have in fact finished using the curve, the pen tool, and basically outlining Marvin the Martian, we can see right now that it is looking, well, just looking like outlines. We're going to color that in, and how do we do that? Quite simple actually. Right over here in the top corner, there is something known as the eyedropper tool. Now, for this example, from here, to use the eyedropper tool is to press I. Now, if you remember Photoshop, the eyedropper tool was to create a color choice. Now that means it will give you the color choice in your color palette down there. But in Illustrator, on the other hand, that doesn't just mean giving the color choice, it also means adding the properties as well as the color that you chose to a selected object. That is why you can see behind me selecting one of those objects, the crown's yellow region over there, and now I'm going to use the eyedropper tool to change the color of that object. And as you see, there it goes. It has been changed to a perfectly proper nice yellow color, which matches in fact the color behind it. Using that same principle, I am going to now change the orange on the next part of that of the crown. There you go, it has been changed. Now, as you can see, the other two of the same color. So instead of me selecting individually, which is basically me shifting between V, which is the which is like the overall selection, and pressing I, which is the eyedropper, instead I am going to use the overall selection, which is just plain old V, plus the key called Shift, pressing them together, holding them down together, and then clicking on the respective pieces, and with just one click of the eyedropper, which is I am going to choose that color, and that would be it. So as you can see, I have now cleaned the whole thing up, and now the only thing left is to give that black outline. And how to do that? Simple. Clicking the red background, the red outline, clicking eyedropper from there, and now simply just clicking over here, and there we go. It has been done. And so with that, just for example, I'm just going to move it onto the side, and as you can see, there is your raster, and there is your vector-based picture. And as you can see, the vector looks much more better now than the raster-based version of Marvin the Martian. So with that, I conclude today's lesson, and I hope you all have a wonderful time.